Greetings, curriculum developers, and welcome to Module 3 of 621A, Stage 2, Determining Acceptable Evidence. So now we're going to be looking at assessment. So the goal for this module is for you to become familiar with a variety of types of assessments that can provide evidence of student growth and how they support a backwards design lesson and curriculum. So for this module, our objectives are that you examine types and purposes of assessment that can be used for gathering acceptable evidence of student learning, and determine how they can best be used in your lesson plan as they relate to your objectives. Also, we want you to identify and design appropriate types of assessment measures that relate to and are aligned with the objectives of your UBD lesson. And that's the alignment is really the critical piece here. So read, watch, and use the resources provided in this module. Read Classroom Assessment, Chapter 4, which is that blue book. Peruse Q tasks for formative assessment ideas. Really great resource. And included in this module is quick formative assessments that have a really astonishingly complete number of lessons and examples of assessments for any kind of lesson and for objectives. Also complete the Module 3, Checking for Understanding and Reading Response. Your product, in addition to that, will be your Determining Acceptable Evidence section, the assessment section on your template. You're going to add to your lesson template by identifying and designing the types of assessments appropriate, summative, formative, and performance, for the objectives, knowledge, and skills of your lesson in language that families and students can understand. Remember, you're writing a short-term lesson. And you know, when I say that, language that families and students can understand, it means that your audience is the students. Your audience is not the principal. Your audience is not me. Your audience is the students. Will they know what you want? And it's always about what do they know and what do they understand. This is not about a college level professor looking at your stuff. This is about what the kids are going to understand. And I'm saying that now in this particular recording, but I want you to remember that for your entire lesson. Submit this assignment in the assignment Dropbox by the due date and time on the course schedule. You can make revisions after the due date without penalty, and again, please add the new material in red, so the rest of your material that you've already submitted should be in black, plus regular black type, and then the new material that you submit on your template will be in red. So you're just adding on to your template, same template, new section. So let's look and see what we have in Module 3. You will have a new video, which is what I'm recording now, for the overview and the PowerPoint that we're looking at. And then you'll have the slides of this PowerPoint here. So this is the packet I think that I may have been referring to. There are two different packets, and I think this is one of them. So the differentiated assessments, these are all formative assessments. You have formative assessments, and I'm going to scroll here. Assessment during the learning, which is, formative also. There's like pre-assessments where you also may want to find out what students already know before you start the lesson. Assessment during the lesson, and then after the learning. So even formative assessment, you can have formative assessment at all 3 stages of learning. And then the summative assessment and performance assessments just tell you have the students learned what you've asked them to work on or not. And there's performance assessment here, summative assessment here. So this is just a terrific resource, and you can just, mine this for information for your assessment section. A thought on assessment, I'll just pass this by you because I think I got this from a prior professor, but if we drove the way we assess, we would be stopping the car every 5 minutes to make sure we knew how to drive and then shaming the driver for going too slow. So districts are moving away from this. Formative assessment doesn't qualify here. Formative assessment means somebody sitting next to you in the car and going, oh, you're going at a pretty good clip here. Do you need to go slower? Do you need to go faster? But they don't stop you and do an assessment. And that's the whole point of formative assessment, is that it's sort of like embedded in the lesson. Summative is when you get done and you check your mileage and how many miles you went, miles per gallon, and how fast you went, did you get a speeding ticket, and so on. Those are summative assessments. So somebody else has a really good one about computers, but I don't have that one here. I just thought that was a useful way to look and just realize that we don't want to just stop and assess every single time. Oh, really? I just locked myself out of Module 3. Okay. Video clip, show me your cards. This is an excellent formative assessment. It's a teacher. If I recall correctly, I can just open it really quick. It is either from Edutopia or it's from the teaching channel. And it's a teacher who uses this strategy as formative assessment. It's an excellent video. Here are the 25 formative assessments that I asked you to read. This is also an excellent piece, and it's part of your reading response, reading the beginning of this document, and then your reading response, and then your assessment. So just make sure you do your assessment. You'll see on your template that the assessments are, the objectives are on one side and the attached assessments are on the other. There's like no ambiguity that they're related. The assessments are related directly to your objectives. And that's what we'll always look for. So even in your lesson, what you're doing in your lesson should be related directly to those objectives and assessments. Pretty simple, I say that. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm going to walk through our PowerPoint now on measurable objectives and assessments. So we're moving on from measurable objectives to assessments. We're at stage 2, determining acceptable evidence. This stage identifies purposes and types of assessments that will be used to measure your lesson objectives. So there are 4 kinds of ways you can use, and probably more. Assessment, you can use it to plan, you can use it to diagnose, you can use it to assess expertise, you can assess for comparison and selection. Like the norm reference test you use at the end, SBAs, you're not using the AMP test is not a norm reference test, but the NAEP is, and so forth. So, actually the AMP is a norm reference test. So, example of assessments types, all of these: test quizzes, academic prompts, checks for understanding, performance tests, observations. All these are acceptable evidence of learning. They just serve different purposes. If you go back here, you're looking at the purposes they serve. And that's what you have to decide, what assessment you're going to use for the purpose it's intended. So remember that we're looking at what's worth learning and teaching, and then so you figure out what it is you're doing to assess that learning and teaching. So you've got, I'll go back just for a second. Oops. Traditional tests or quizzes, familiarity, important to know and do. You have constructed or selected responses. And for really basing enduring understanding, you have authentic performance tests and projects, which you'll really be working on in B. Beyond formative and summative, beyond formative and summative. So when the cook tastes the soup, that's formative. When the guest takes the soup, that's summative. That's when you know that's it. That's all they get. That's all you get. So you're the cook and you help the students taste the soup, and then finally they're going to give you information at the end that tells you whether the soup turned out okay or not. So pre-assessments, assessment of learning and progress, all these are different types of assessments you can use at the different stages. Assessment should be based on clear learning goals and objectives and clear ideas about the important work students will do during the school year. So you're ending up kind of cheerleading them through not only the work they're doing, the learning they're having, but how are they going to know that they've learned the material? And they want to know. Students want to know that they've learned the material and that they've succeeded. And the more you can engage them in the assessment, the more they will understand their own success. So with objectives, you've identified knowledge and skills, what the student should know and be able to do. And these are examples of objectives for citizenship project or citizenship unit, actually. And you can see that on the left side, there are things the students should have general knowledge about, or knowledge about the Constitution, reasons for the Constitutional Convention, the role the Founding Fathers played, how Constitution affects their everyday lives, process for voting, and help citizens resolve conflicts. I want you to notice about these is that they're all measurable. All of these can be measured. And that what should they be able to do? Vote for candidates running for office, extract information from books and articles, evaluate differences between two candidates, read and recite the preamble, explain how laws are important. These are also measurable, but they are not so specific that they're already asking for answers. The objectives are not where you ask students to come up with information. It's what you're going to have them show you what they know and what they can do. And the way you have them show it is you move to assessment. The measurable objective is general knowledge about the Constitution. What's the acceptable evidence? Actually, these three objectives: how the Constitution affects everyday lives and the role of the Founding Fathers. So for number 1, they can have a post-instruction survey. For number 2, they can write a 3-paragraph essay. For number 3, they can fill in a Venn diagram after they've done the research. So all of these require more than just single answer responses, but they can address these measurable objectives. So the evidence in these cases are performance activities and academic prompts that students can use to show that they have come to an understanding of these objectives. And you can also use them as summative evaluations if you need to. So your assignment is to read and use materials and complete the CFU reading response. Design assessments that align with your lesson objectives. Add new material in red, please, on the same template that you've been working with, and then submit your work anytime. And you know me and feedback, so I will give you feedback, and enjoy setting up your assessments. I'm hoping, remember, again, with assessments, you're not doing a large number. You're doing 1 or 2 assessments per objective, and you should only have 1 or 2 objectives, because you're only just doing a small lesson. So keep it small, keep it focused, but don't make it so narrow that it only lasts 15 minutes, because that's not a lesson, that's an activity. There's a set of activities that create the lesson, and they're all based on the objectives and the assessments. So let me know if you have any question. I'm always here and available to you.